The thrust of the Drug Awareness Conference is alcohol and drug abuse is so widespread among American youth, the problem must be attacked on all fronts.
I think each and every one of us has to be responsible, and that's why we've really tried to get a lot of different kinds of segments of the population involved in this workshop.
Gail
We not only think the professionals through the clergy, medical media, drug treatment centers and prevention specialists, but law enforcement. Those results showed that 9% of that age group, 15 to 18, had a drink within the last 48 hours that they were questioned, and 10% had smoked marijuana.
Willett says parents, educators, and other professionals should be able to pick up some tips on how to prevent alcohol and drug problems.
We have several prevention programs across the state that are starting as low as kindergarten, 1st through 3rd grade, teaching children how easy habits are to build and how hard they are to break, and give them a little bit of factual information, because you'd be surprised about how much they know already, and they need to know accurate information.
The significance of the conference will be dramatized by a personal appearance from First Lady Nancy Reagan, who will speak about a national anti-drug campaign. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Meet Joan Holland. She's 37 years old. And meet her sister, Margie Heisel, who's 32. They've just met each other for the first time in their lives. It started when Margie called Joan at her home in East Montgomery last week.
She said, "This is Margie Heisel. I'm your sister." I was so shocked. I knew I had a brother and some sisters in the family, and I had met part of them, but I've never met Margie.
Joan and Margie's mother was married 4 times. Their family was widely spread. Joan, a brother, and a sister were given up for adoption as infants.
I had never ever questioned the fact, going back and searching for roots like that. It's so popular nowadays. And Mother said, well, you have a lot of brothers and sisters in that.
10 to be exact, but Joan didn't know about any of them except a brother until 1977, 1 year after her natural mother's death. That's when some of her other siblings started trying to track each other down. Margie only managed to contact Joan with the help of another brother, Walter Matuzovitz.
But it wasn't that easy. I got on the phone and I froze.
Now, of the 10 brothers and sisters, 9 have been found. They're still looking for a 10th, a brother. They think he lives somewhere in Seattle, Washington. The only name they have is Joey. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Don't you let nobody tear you down.
The meeting held at the old ship AME Zion Church of Montgomery was billed as a Get Out the Vote rally. But more than anything, it was an anti-Wallace rally. Even before the program started, anti-Wallace handbills and pro-McMillan campaign literature was handed out. The standing room only crowd heard from several state and local black leaders. Chairman of the Alabama Democratic Conference, Joe Reed, who sponsored tonight's meeting, said he couldn't believe he had to stand before crowds and television cameras and explain why blacks voted for Wallace in the primary. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who arrived late, was greeted by the audience with a standing ovation. The civil rights leader delivered a sermon on the plight of black Americans. Jackson said blacks had to struggle for the right to vote and equality, but now they have to struggle for economic equality. Although Reverend Jackson did not directly tell the gathering not to vote for Wallace, he left little doubt.
George Wallace represents a blooded chapter in American history. We must close that book.
Jackson said Wallace might have had a change of heart about segregation, but that doesn't mean that he's for black political progress.
They are some of the finest leadership any place in the nation. Your leadership has integrity. Your leadership is intelligent. Your leadership is N-O-T-H-I-N-G, that's what balls mean to me. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Hey, hey, N-O-T-H-I-N-G, that's what balls mean to me. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I can't say enough about our kicking game today. It was a great job by Lewis. Great job by the specialty teams. You took Tennessee's kicking game away from them. Now, men, I'm going to tell you something right now. We got a monumental task in front of us next week. And you got a chance, a one-in-a-lifetime deal, right here on your home field.
In Tuscaloosa, Vanderbilt put a scare into the fourth-ranked Crimson Tide. They drove 80 yards on the opening possession to take a 7-0 lead when Whit Taylor snuck it over from the 1. A Vandy turnover gave Bama their start. Mike Pitts recovers an errant pitch out here on the Commodore 1. From there, Craig Turner gets the first of 2 first-half TDs, diving it over to tie it at 7. On the next possession, Walter Lewis tallies on a 4-yard run. Peter Kim added a field goal, and Bama was in control 24-7 at half. But Kurt Page, in for the injured Taylor, rallied the Commodores in the second half. Here he connects with Alma Matthews from 16 yards out to cut it to 24-14. After a fumble on the ensuing kickoff, Alabama dodges a bullet. Gerald Sprinkle picks off a Page pass here in the end zone. While the Tide offense sputtered, Vandy went back to work. Page again to Matthews, 11-yard touchdown pass. Suddenly, it's 24-21 in the fourth quarter, still to play. But the Tide defense stiffened. Alabama hangs on to win it 24-21. The Crimson Tide entertains Arkansas State next Saturday in Birmingham. At Auburn, the Tigers use 100-plus days from Bo Jackson and Lionel James to whip Tennessee. On the first possession, Jackson takes it over on this 20-yard scamper, but Al Del Greco missed his first ever point after at Auburn. Tigers led it 6-0. The Vols took the lead when Alan Cockrell connects with speedster Willie Gault on this 39-yard bomb. 7-6 Tennessee still in the first. After a Del Greco field goal made it 9-7, the Tigers score another in the third when James breaks outside for a 32-yard touchdown run with the try for 2, 17-7 Auburn. But Gault again beats the Tiger defense deep. Cockrell connects here on a 78-yard bomb, 17-14 Auburn. But the Tigers ice it away when James goes over from the 2. Auburn 24, Tennessee 14. The unbeaten Tigers face Nebraska next week in Auburn. More on the Auburn-Tennessee game on the Auburn Football Review immediately following the news.
And background that they feel is the best candidate. It was also charged against me that my qualification they asked me for nothing, they gave me nothing, and I promised. My opponent has received more than $16,000 in special interest money. $12,638 coming from banks, the remainder coming from institutions such as Alabama Power, U.S. Steel, International Paper, and the list goes on.
Everything right with individuals banding together to form groups, and those groups giving support. My financial group support has come from individuals within those companies. There's no corporate dollar or consumer dollar attached to any of them, just pure individuals who are expressing their conviction that KIV is the best qualified for state auditor. I, too, have run a very factual, open campaign, and to be truthful is not unchristian. And I have been truthful in all of my facts as I have presented them, and just have asked my opponent to be equally as factual in presenting her qualifications.
An Air Force jet reserved for the first family set down at the Alabama Air National Guard base at Montgomery Stanley Field this morning. Waiting to meet the First Lady were Governor and Mrs. Bob James. Governor James invited Mrs. Reagan to speak at the first annual Governor's Conference on Drug Awareness because of her national stand against drug abuse. The conference, coordinated by the Alabama Department of Mental Health, is designed to inform public, private, and professional citizens about what is being done on the state and national level to combat drug and alcohol abuse. In addition to the First Lady, many other nationally renowned speakers are scheduled to take part in the three-day conference. Mrs. Reagan, who delivered a 4.5-minute speech, commended Governor James and Montgomery Mayor Emery Fulmer for their work in fighting the drug problem in Alabama. The First Lady told the audience that drug abuse is a problem that crosses all social and economic lines and is killing the spirit and hope of the young people in America. Mrs. Reagan says she's optimistic about the future because people are coming together to face the drug problem.
I'm told that your state motto is, "We dare defend our rights." Well, what this conference is saying is, we dare to defend our children. And as long as drug abuse is a threat, as long as our kids are endangered, I know that there will be people like you there to defend them.
Following her part in the conference, Mayor and Mrs. Fulmer escorted the First Lady back to Danley Field. Mrs. Reagan's aides say Montgomery was just the first stop on a 2-day whirlwind trip that will take her to Mississippi, Arkansas, and then back to Washington. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
Friend waiting in the wings that I want to be head of Alabama. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it's unintentional, that it's due to a, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it was unintentional, that there's a lapse of memory, like talking about a bill that you're going to pass that you forgot that you signed, 3 years ago, like signing a petition to free 2 ladies, and then the next day claiming that you forgot and really you thought there was an autograph. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and think that it was just unintentional, that the individual is misinformed. But other newspapers haven't been that charitable. Other newspapers have spoken out rather bluntly about the fact that they consider the misrepresentations to be misrepresentations that were intentional, and in that event they would have to fall into the category of falsehoods, and falsehoods will not lead this state forward.
The governor's declaration of proration didn't come as a surprise. The governor and other top state officials have been huddling for weeks trying to figure a way around the current shortage of tax money. James says if the legislature had passed his retirement reform plan and unearmarked taxes, the state wouldn't have to begin a budget year with a money problem.
But unless I called proration, if I delayed, you aren't supposed to delay by law, I would have left, or I would have run a terrible risk of leaving a time bomb in this office for the next governor.
Governor James says one alternative to proration is for the legislature to go into special session and rewrite the budgets to spend no more next year than this year. But Mr. James admitted there isn't much support for that idea. The governor was asked about prorating salaries of teachers and state employees.
It just depends on what the law provides for in those instances.
WSFA TV News obtained a copy of an Attorney General's opinion issued at the request of House Speaker Joe McCorkadale more than 2 years ago, but not made public until now. That opinion addresses the subject of prorating teacher salaries.
The law is rather clear on that, and the fact that it's just never been done since that time, but I think the Attorney General has let it be known now that...
in this opinion?
Yes, in that opinion right there, that all line items in a budget shall be prorated equally without discrimination, and that certainly includes salaries as well as any other items in the budget.
Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
I'm sure that you'll hear other stories heartbreak at this conference, but in spite of everything, I have to tell you, I do remain optimistic. I'm encouraged because people are finally coming together to face up to the problem of drug abuse. Parents are becoming more involved, more knowledgeable, less embarrassed than they were in the 60s when all of this started. You remember at that time, when it did start, parents were, well, they thought that their child was the only child on drugs. And they were self-conscious, and they were embarrassed. And they really didn't know much about drugs. And we've come a long way since then, and now parents are becoming, as I say, much more involved and more knowledgeable. And I think the professionals now feel that something can be done also.
We have not and we will not engage in mudslinging tactics. The people of Alabama deserve better. My opponent has received more than $16,000 in special interest money. $12,638 coming from banks, the remainder coming from institutions such as Alabama Power, U.S. Steel, International Paper, and the list goes on. Of what I had promised, special interest. And I can simply address that by saying, they asked me for nothing.
The students walked silently from Alabama State University, not the kind of civil rights march Dexter Avenue in Montgomery has seen so many times before, but it was a march to deliver a message.
So today, we are going to express a message to the Alabama legislature, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, the Legal Defense Fund of the NAACP, that whether they like it or not, whether white America realizes it or not, whether white America wishes to support it or not, I will say that black colleges will be here, now, on, henceforth, and forevermore.
Our black institutions are in the worst of times. In the worst of time because Reagan's federal policy will bring the power back to the individual states and will cause a 20th century plantation system with the individual governors serving as bosses. Say crack colleges! Say crack colleges! Say crack colleges!
The students are warning lawmakers that they have the voting strength to make or break political careers, and they vow to save their predominantly black colleges. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
And tomorrow when we win this race and people ask me, how was it done? How was it done? I will simply ask that they look not only in this room, but in many rooms like this all across this state and see people who've been willing to become involved in politics, to give of their personal and financial resources because they care, because they believe in the state of Alabama, and they are tired of our being held down while being told we were standing up, and they want us to stand up in a substantive manner. They want Alabama to be known as a leadership state, and they know that we as Alabamians have the ability to make that a reality, and beginning January of next year, we're going to go to work to show that we can do that, just like we will show tomorrow that we can win this race.
Pollution code, and the same is true with damages there, to establish future monitoring and surveillance programs. We're asked to define motor oil in the maximum amount. The law that we're traveling under says that it could be a civil penalty of not less.
Auburn's Mudd and Jeff halfback duo, Lionel James and Bo Jackson, had 100-yard days. 6'1", 225-pound Bo Jackson going 20 yards for the score on Auburn's first possession. Al Del Greco, after 55 straight points after, missed his first in an Auburn uniform. 6-0 Auburn. 5'7", 170-pound Lionel James, who gained 129 yards to Jackson's 110, ran 16 yards on this play, but Auburn failed on a field goal try. That allowed Tennessee to take a 7-6 lead in the second quarter when Alan Cockrell threw the bomb to the fleet Willie Galt. The play covered 39 yards. Auburn regained the lead just before the half on an Al Del Greco field goal, and in the third quarter they went up by 10 on a fine bit of misdirection with Lionel James going 32 yards for the score. 17-7 Auburn after a two-point run by Bo Jackson. Tennessee came back before the quarter ended. Again, Cockrell to Willie Galt, the league's top receiver. 78-yard bomb. Tennessee within 3. Auburn put the game away on an 87-yard drive. Half of it on this halfback pass. Lionel James to Bo Jackson. Tim Jesse made a clutch third down run to the 2. And Lionel James scored the clincher to give Auburn its first win over Tennessee in 4 years. Auburn 24, Tennessee 14. The Tigers unbeaten in 3 games. Tennessee has now lost 2 of 3. Phil Snow reporting from Auburn.
You knew Bama would have a tough day from the opening gun. On the first drive, Vandy took it 80 yards for a score. Quarterback Whit Taylor getting 40 on this keeper down to the Bama 31. 3 plays later, he sneaks it in to 1. Just like that, Commodores had a 7-0 lead. After the Tide lost a fumble at the Vandy 16, the Commodores gave it right back. Jeff Holt can't handle the pitch. Mike Pitch recovers at the Vandy 1. Next play, designated scorer Craig Turner takes it over. 9:18 left in the first. The game's tied at 7. Bama drives at 58 yards for their next score. Walter Lewis taking it in from the 4. 14-7 Alabama. Peter Kim booted this 37-yard field goal in the second quarter, and Turner added another short run to put Bama up 24-7 at halftime. But in the second half, it was all Vandy. After recovering a fumble at midfield, Kurt Page in for the injured Taylor hits Alma Matthews for a 16-yard scoring strike. 24-14 Bama. Another Vandy TD was saved after a fumble on the kickoff when Gerald Sprinkle picked off this Page pass in the end zone. But Vandy wouldn't roll over. Page to Matthews again from 11 yards out, made it 24-21 Bama late in the third. The Tide defense stiffened in the fourth, and Bama hung on for a tough win, 24-21 over Vanderbilt.
Governor James says the Education Trust Fund will be short $78 million, and the general fund will lack $47 million in meeting next fiscal year's budget appropriations. The governor says if he hadn't declared proration at the start of the fiscal year, October 1st, he would have run the risk of leaving a time bomb for the next governor. Governor James says the shortfall of money is the result of expensive employee fringe benefits and earmarked tax revenues.
Our legislative liaison chief, Mr. Bob Getty, back there, will be in constant communications with the legislators. If they determine, advise me to the fact that they are ready to pass this long overdue reform legislation, that I'm ready any day, any night to commence a special session.
State School Superintendent Wayne Teague says he expected proration, but he doesn't think teachers' salaries can be reduced to make up for the shortage. House Speaker Joe McCorkadale says an Attorney General's opinion makes it clear to him that teacher salaries can be prorated. This opinion, received by the Speaker on August 7, 1980, says except for debt service, state contributions to employee Social Security and retirement, and essential functions of government, each and every line item in the education budget must be prorated. A spokesman for the State Department of Public Safety says the department will be severely impacted by the 15% cutback order because that agency gets all its money from the State General Fund. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
And remember our purpose for being here. And our purpose is a fourfold one. We're here to attack assimilation or integration, federal aid and grants, and politicians.
The students say politicians are scheming against them behind closed doors, trying to take away their federal aid and tradition.
We lost our meaning for why we're here, because the next message we want to give to the Alabama legislature is that we as students have a lot of power, too much power, so much power that if we find out anyone who does not support the existence of black colleges, we will remember them come election day.
The students say they owe it to themselves and their forefathers to fight for black colleges. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
About 2,500 supporters showed up for the rally. It was a good night for them all. Hot dogs went fast and hands clapped and toes tapped to country singer Tammy Wynette.
I rearranged the living rooms in Maine. I gave you favorite chair to charity.
After the concert, candidate George Wallace, in good form tonight, promised to bring jobs to the state, eliminate proration, and halt leniency for convicted criminals. But he said none of it all would be possible unless his supporters get out and vote. Wallace told them special interests are against it.
We can win if you come out to vote, but we are fighting the Republicans, the special interests, the large newspapers, and all of those who fight us because they don't want us, and we're going to have even the Republicans in Montgomery tomorrow to go in the polls and vote against George Wallace, because they know they can beat the other candidate I'm running against, but they know they can't beat you and me together on the 28th.
Pollsters and supporters in both camps are saying tomorrow's runoff race is too close to call. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Wallace campaign rally.
President Gerald Ford and Mayor Emery Coleman.
The former president and the man who wants to be governor were given a standing ovation as they entered the room. Nearly 1,000 people paid $125 a plate for the dinner, which included a chance to meet the candidate and the highlight of the evening.
The 38th President of the United States, President Gerald R. Ford.
Mr. Ford's speech was a self-proclaimed effort to carry on the Republican surge that put Ronald Reagan in the White House, calling the state elections a crucial and critical time for the nation.
You in the state of Alabama, at the state level, have serious problems. And you want not the same old tired politicians trying to solve the problems in the same old tired way. But I think you've got a great, great opportunity to elect the kind of a person that the state of Alabama needs as its governor for the next 4 years in Emery Palmer. Thank you.
Though it was billed as a fundraiser, a Palmer campaign organizer says it was most important because it showed the national interest in the Palmer campaign. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
In Autauga County, workers say a better-than-average number of voters came to the polls in steady lines. Workers say it didn't take long for most of the voters to cast their ballots. Probate Judge Jim Corley says he's expecting a low voter turnout this time, mainly because there are no hotly contested races in the Prattville City area. Judge Corley says another reason may be voter attitude.
We have an awful lot of unemployment. People want to go to work, and they're ready and willing to work, and they want something different, and they're just hoping that we can get somebody in office this time at the state level that can help them with jobs and get them back to work.
In Elmore County, there's one local race for probate judge. Incumbent Edward Ensign says he doesn't think the local contest will draw a larger voting crowd than last time. Like Autauga County, voting here is steady. Judge Ensign is also concerned about voter attitude. He described it as apathetic.
I think people pretty well realize that the rhetoric is political rhetoric, just what it is, and it just fades away with time, very much like smoke.
Both probate judges expect to have the votes counted about an hour and a half after the polls close. Voter turnout in Montgomery County is also described as steady. Blacks reportedly did not turn out in large numbers at the polls. Workers at the Cleveland Avenue precinct say the turnout is moderate but steady. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Well, I think they have a perfect right, and I have a high regard for both of them. I have a high regard for Mrs. King and Martin Luther Sr. Dr. Martin Sr. has been to see me many times. I say at least 3 times when I was governor, and would pray for me, and which I always appreciated my office. They had a perfect right to do that, and I certainly have no criticism whatsoever. I'm very happy to know that when the newsmen interviewed Ms. King's father, that he said he was voting for George Wallace, and her mother said that she was undecided.
I wanted to make sure I didn't make a mistake in there. To make sure I pulled the right one. Thank you. Thank you.
Just a minute. Hey, Mary.
Hi, George. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Look at those returns tonight. They come out right.
Glad to see y'all here. Glad to see you. Oh, God, yes, sir. Good to see you again, but thanks you, man. Yes, ma'am.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine.
Nice to see
Good to be back home.
Yes, nice to see you
Thank
back
you.
home.
Thank you. I'll be back.
May God bless you.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Employee Association Executive Director Paul Smith accused the governor of ineptitude, irresponsibility, and gross mismanagement. Mr. Smith is unhappy about the governor's declaration of proration in the general fund. Mr. Smith calls it one of the governor's shell games.
So what is he really up to? He has found no legal way to penalize state workers and teachers. So he has declared an unnecessarily high proration in both budgets, hoping, 1, to cut their salaries and force layoffs, and 2, to browbeat the legislature into voting for his so-called retirement and benefit reforms.
Mr. Smith says the governor wasted millions of dollars in a series of special sessions to deal with his reforms. Mr. Smith also says the governor acted contrary to state law by releasing conditional funds this year, which he says prevented any possible carryover to help defray the shortage next year. Mr. Smith says the governor rates very low with state employees.
He has yet to learn that he was elected governor, not absolute monarch.
And Mr. Smith says the Employees Association is thankful these are the last few months of the James administration. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
I feel confident, yes. I'm hopeful. I would be disappointed if I did not win. But I would not be disappointed with the people of Alabama. Because the people of Alabama, win or lose, have been better to me and my family probably than any other man in Alabama's history. And I still owe every minute of the time that I have left in my mortal life, try to always be of some service to Alabama. of our country. So the people of Alabama have been so gracious. There's no way in the world to ever repay them. No way for any one term to be repaid by an individual. They live to be 200 years of age because of the responsibility and the confidence they placed in a candidate. I'm going to win tonight in my judgment. And I think that later on you will see that. But I will never be disappointed in the people of this state for whatever they do politically, as far as I'm concerned, because they have already been overly gracious and kind to me. And I pray God's blessing on all Alabamians.
Montgomery Police Chief Charles Swindle responded tonight to a report filed last week by Councilman Donald Watkins alleging police negligence in the June 12th shooting death of Frank Pinkston. Police say Pinkston was killed while trying to flee during a drugstore burglary. Councilman Watkins claims police accounts of the event are inaccurate and misleading. Chief Swindle says Mr. Watkins has done a grave disservice to police.
Mr. Watkins proceeds for many pages in blatant character assassination of the entire Montgomery Police Department and many others based upon hearsay, rumor, and fiction.
The chief's report stresses that the shooting was thoroughly investigated by the Montgomery County District Attorney and no irregularities were found. However, Mr. Watkins still stands by his report and says police have yet to deny some of the allegations he's made.
I think that anytime a department head submits a report to this council, it ought to be full and complete.
The exchange between Mr. Watkins and Chief Swindle prompted a debate among other council members. While some called for private or council investigations into the whole affair, others said it was demoralizing that police should even have to suffer Mr. Watkins' accusations. Reporting from City Hall, Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Okay.
Raise.
yesterday's news conference, Lieutenant Governor George McMillan said he thought it was time for the state of Alabama to have positive leadership and said he could offer that leadership. He also thanked his supporters for being positive in their effort to elect him as governor. He said he had one of the best campaign staffs the country has ever had, and he has echoed that position today. Many of those supporters are here in Birmingham tonight, and outside from celebrating what they're calling a victory rally, they have entertainment, and at the same time, the only time the room is quiet is when people are watching returns. They say they're picking up support in some areas they didn't expect to be as strong as they are. They prefer to wait until the last minute, until the last vote is counted, so they'll be assured of a victory. That's about it from Birmingham. Matt Carmack, WSFA TV News in Birmingham.
Nearly 1,000 people showed up for the $125 a plate dinner, which included an open bar, a chance to meet the candidate, and for those who couldn't fit into the main room, a chance to watch the main event on closed-circuit television.
The 38th President of the United States, President Gerald R. Ford.
Mr. Ford's speech was a call for a Republican rally in this year's election, the same sort of rally that helped put Ronald Reagan in the White House 2 years ago.
The state of Alabama, state government got a few problems. I don't understand the magnitude of all of them, but I understand enough to know that the circumstances, to some degree, comparing federal and state, are comparable to those that faced Ronald Reagan when he took the oath of office in January of 1981. We won an election in 1980, but we better win it in 1982.
The former president's visit comes at what former campaign workers admit is a good time, not only stealing some of the limelight from the Democratic gubernatorial runoff, but also helping build momentum as the former campaign enters the last leg of the race for the governor's chair. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
I don't know. It may end this weekend. You never know. You can't force negotiations around here about something like that. It's a little too much money to just all of a sudden straighten out in 1 or 2 days. I don't know. I hope it didn't last no more than about a couple more days.
Is it as solid among the players as Gene Upshaw and the Players Union make it out to be?
Yes, it is. The whole league is out. 1,500 player plus. We're out. We're on strike, officially on strike. No one has tried to go in and practice across the picket line, what you might say, and everybody is hanging together. But we set up a thing where everybody's going to help each other. If they have any kind of financial problems, should call each other, and we try our best to straighten things out.
The Atlanta Braves moved into a tie with the Dodgers in the National League West behind the two-hit shutout of veteran Phil Niekro. His knuckleball was dancing. Niekro went the distance. It was his first shutout of the season. Leading 1-0, Chris Chambliss got his first of 3 RBIs, bringing home Murphy on this sacrifice fly in the 3rd inning. The Braves blew the game open in the 4th. They sent 9 men to the plate, scoring 5 runs. Bruce Benedict singling Royster home to make it 3-0. With 1 out, the Giants handed the Braves a gift run. Rafael Ramirez, who homered in the 3rd, got another RBI to make it 4-0. With runners at 1st and 3rd, 2 outs, Chris Chambliss belts one to deep right center field. His 21st hit in his last 19 games, scores 2 runs. 7-0 Braves. After that, Phil Niekro held the Giants to only a Darrell Evans single and a Jack Clark triple. Art Ekman reporting for NBC News.
Well, Wednesday, it was sort of a shock, and I was nervous about it. And then Thursday and Friday, I got over it. And then Saturday, I wasn't nervous till I got on the field. But I was glad he told me early so I could get over the nervousness at the beginning.
All the snaps, were you pleased with all the snaps? They all looked good?
Yes, sir. I saw the film yesterday, and they all looked pretty good.
Do you think that may have helped Lewis's confidence for that ball to come back there so crisply and give him that little extra split second to get ready?
Well, he does a good job kicking, and he likes them right above his knees and below his chest all the time. So I try to get him there because he says that helps him out a lot. So I try to put him there.
Were you able to get in on any tackles?
Yes, sir. I had one tackle Willie Galton on one play, and I was in on another one. And then after that, I was getting down there so fast they peeled a guy off and cut me off on the rest of them. But the first two, I was in on.
That just adds a little to the game if you're able to get in on the tackle.
That's the fun part about it, and get a little defense play in there on the punt team.
Black leaders are expected to meet this weekend to discuss their strategy for the November general election. Representative Alvin Holmes says he would assume that ADC will endorse the straight Democratic ticket. If that does happen, it will be the first time the black political party has endorsed George Wallace.
But that's a decision the state's black leadership must make. As for Representative Holmes, he says he's voting the Democratic ticket all the way and wants other blacks to do the same.
I'm going to encourage blacks in the state of Alabama to vote the straight Democratic ticket in November. I'm a Democrat, and I serve on the state Democratic Executive Committee, and I'm going to support the nominees of the Democratic Party.
Representative Holmes says he wasn't surprised at the black support Wallace received. He says about the same number of blacks voted for the former governor this time as they did in the primary. He says the difference came in rural black counties, which supported Mr. McMillan. Now, Representative Holmes says he hopes Mr. Wallace will make a good governor.
And I certainly hope that he will stick to his word that he's going to be a governor for both black and white. And, of course, he was not that before.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News. 10.
Black leaders are expected to meet this weekend to discuss their strategy for the November general election. Representative Alvin Holmes says he's assuming that the black leaders will endorse the straight Democratic ticket.
But Representative Holmes says he is sure that the ADC won't endorse the Republican gubernatorial nominee, Emory Fulmer. There's something else Mr. Holmes says he's sure about, that he's going to vote the straight Democratic ticket, and says he's going to encourage other blacks to do likewise. Mr. Holmes also says it'll be the first time he's voted for Mr. Wallace.
I have never voted for Governor Wallace before in my life, and certainly didn't vote for him this time. But if I'm going to vote the straight Democratic ticket in November.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Children know far more than we do, and we need to be a credible source for them. So when that child comes home, and as one leader has told us, and he says, "Mom, I saw so-and-so passing a roach on the playground," and the mother doesn't say, "Was it alive or dead?" She needs to know that there was marijuana being passed on the playground, because she would lose that credibility.
What we're going to do is audit our own office first for work efficiency, and then see where we need to go. This far removed from the office, it would be just more political rhetoric. And we're going to get in there and see firsthand what needs to be done.
No one was surprised that the race was so close. Most people had expected a slim margin of victory. It gave George Wallace his fourth Democratic nomination, making Alabama history. The Wallace camp held on to the newly gained black support that the Alabama Democratic Conference had worked hard to destroy. That support is believed by knowledgeable political observers to have helped give Wallace his win. Wallace campaign officials say Republicans voted heavily for McMillan in an effort to avoid a general election showdown with Wallace. During his acceptance speech last night, George Wallace told supporters he had to defeat McMillan's Democratic supporters as well as Republican voters who were trying to knock him out of the race. During an interview today at his home in Montgomery, we got a hint of what kind of campaign Alabamians can expect.
Alabama doesn't need any Republican governor, because the folks who are leading the Republican campaign in this state, they do not ever have to look at a power bill. They don't have to look at a grocery bill. They don't have to sit down and budget items out because they just have somebody to handle their business for them and pay for it. But that is not what the people that are going to vote for me do. They have to worry about the power bill. They have to worry about the water bill. They have to worry about the gas bill. They have to worry about all the bills.
Wallace campaign officials say they expect to make no drastic campaign strategy changes over the next few weeks. But campaign coordinator Bill Rushton says they will actively seek the McMillan vote and work hard for the next 30 days in an effort to beat Republican candidate Emory Fulmer in the general election. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
We provide a newsletter that networks what other parents are doing so that they can share with each other their successes and also their failures. We're having 8-year-olds that are experiencing tough growth. They're going way on into their early 20s, not being able to come home in the class, which we know are very vulnerable kids. We also know that 41% of the high school seniors feel that about 2 out of every 3 kids in high school have used marijuana at least once. We know that nationally about
to work to make possible that which others have rationalized as being impossible. I want to, regardless of the official outcome of this race, that in which we believe is possible. And the only day that it will ever become impossible is when we quit believing, and I will assure you that George McMillan does not intend to quit believing. I love you.
Campaign workers were on the job at Fulmer State headquarters all last night.
Fulmer campaign.
And today the pace did not slacken. The Fulmer people are heading into the home stretch convinced they can and will win.
Ways are thin, but not unexpected. I recognize this to be what I would have thought to have been the nominee months ago.
That's how Mr. Fulmer summed up the George Wallace victory last night, a victory that has at last given Mr. Fulmer a clear target.
The main thrust of the campaign will continue to be, as it has been from the outset with me, that this man cannot solve the problem of the state of Alabama because he is the problem. Every problem that we've got, the state of Alabama can basically be laid to his doorstep.
But Mr. Fulmer says there will be no major changes in his campaign strategy, and he doesn't believe the Wallace win was a defeat for Republicans.
You know, that you have to play the ball game till it's over. If he wants to appear cocky, and his people want to appear cocky, tell him to cinch up tight.
And then we could probably pull most of Macon County, because, you know, if you kind of look at the records from last night, we can see that McMillan was very strong in the Macon County area.
Now the Fulmer camp is trying hard to cash in on the McMillan votes and counting the days until the election.
Fulmer campaign.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
That was the thing to do.
Peter Vashenko, who suffered many decades in the basement of the American Embassy for 4.5 years now. We appreciate your personal concern, the encouragement that you have been to us. We also appreciate your commitment to religious liberty for all people. And we are grateful to all of the people of Montgomery who have supported us in this effort. The Vashenkos are still in the embassy, so we ask.
ABC Board Attorney Hendon DeBray delivered Mr. Broadwater's response to the judge and to the circuit clerk's office.
Broadwater was forced to decide between working as assistant state finance director and ABC board administrator after 2 liquor store employees challenged a recent employee layoff order. Attorneys for the employees charged that the layoff order was invalid because Broadwater was holding 2 state jobs. Broadwater says he's staying with the ABC board only long enough for a replacement to be found. After that,
I would not be surprised to be appointed to some position in which I would work as an assistant to the governor and work in the finance department, or as assistant finance director. To say actually what title I would have, I wouldn't venture to say that, but I'd be working probably in the capacity of an assistant finance director.
Judge Perry Hooper also instructed the 2 employees who challenged the layoff to take their cases to the State Personnel Board. A hearing on that matter has not been scheduled yet. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
George McMillan fought the good fight until 4 o'clock this afternoon. Then he conceded the Democratic nomination to George Wallace, but only, he said, in the literal sense.
But that which this campaign stands for, that which is capable of achievement in Alabama and in the rest of the world, has not lost.
Even after Wallace made his victory speech last night, McMillan's supporters greeted their man like a winner. It was shortly before midnight at Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham. The race was a cliffhanger, he said. There were too many votes not yet in from Jefferson County, where he was running strong, to say the race had been won or lost.
I've discovered that there are certain things in Alabama, such as chief clerks taking boxes home with them at night.
He hinted that he might challenge the vote tallies, but there were no hints today. For the most part, McMillan was philosophical, except for one barb at journalist Bob Ingram, who wrote in Alabama Magazine it would take a miracle, like Moses parting the Red Sea, for McMillan to win.
Well, I would like to tell Bob Ingram that we partially parted the waters of the Red Sea, and we are people... We're people who believe that one day that water can be parted.
McMillan closed a little misty-eyed, saying he could accept the loss of opportunity as maturely as he would have accepted the challenge of responsibility. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Governor Wallace, I think inside themselves share the same kind of goals for Alabama that we...
High school seniors go on a binge drunk once a week. That's setting rules in their own homes. No drug use. It's unacceptable. They're chaperoning dances in schools so that these can become drug-free and alcohol-free dances. They're providing alternatives for their kids. They're getting legislation passed to deal with the head shops and the paraphernalia industry. They're supporting law enforcement. They're supporting recreation programs, and they're forming a network of people who are concerned about youth in this country.
The race did get rather ugly at the end. Of course, we had documented evidence from the tax assessor in Crenshaw County. The people of Alabama, my hat is off to them. They sifted through the political rhetoric and came up with the truth. And for that, I am very appreciative. Of course, I put all that in the past. The campaign, that portion of the campaign, that's not how I want to remember this campaign. I want to remember the good people that helped me. I put that portion of the campaign in the past. The only thing I want to do is to serve the people of Alabama.
That they have in me and the goals which we share for the future of the state of Alabama. And what I want to say to them is that literally we lost the election yesterday, but that which this campaign stands for, that which is capable of achievement in Alabama and in the rest of the world, has not lost, because the very fact that we came within a hair of winning. When Bob Ingram, a respected political columnist in this state, commented,
this doorstep. That we can't get around the fact that we have court-ordered prisons, we have court-ordered mental health facilities, we have court-ordered hiring practices, we have a black eye around the world, and must in all truth be attributed to a lack of leadership over the years. Tough candidate? Sure, he'll be a tough candidate. Sure, he's a tough candidate. He's the oldest pro anywhere around. You know, and I'm the new kid on the block. We'll see.
So what we're going to do is audit our own office first for work efficiency, and then see where we need to go. This far removed from the office, it would be just more political rhetoric. And we're going to get in there and see firsthand what needs to be done.
And remember it, please, regardless of the official outcome of this race, that in which we believe is possible, and the only day that it will ever become impossible is when we quit believing, and I will assure you that George McMillan does not intend to quit believing. I love you.
I'm very humbled by this win. I want to thank my wife and all of my family. We also beat the Republican Party today in Alabama.